welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. I'd like to talk in this episode about certain events that occur on somewhat of a repeated basis and why, the bottom line is it's good to have an immigration attorney prepare whatever it is that you need prepared rather than trying to do it yourself. So for example, I get these calls for consults sometimes and they'll say, I've done research on the internet and I have determined that form whatever needs to be filled out and I just want you to confirm if that's correct. Okay. So first of all, whatever the form happens to be, whether it's for a waiver, an adjustment, consulate processing, an appeal, whatever it is, the form itself is kind of like the table of contents of a book. Okay, you would not expect to know the contents of a book and to really understand the book by reading the table of contents. Okay, and that's essentially what happens when you think, that all you need to do is fill out a form and then that you're going to get it approved. I mean, that with Trump in office, and even before he was in office, it's not easy to get things approved at immigration, and now it's even more difficult. So let's just talk about waivers, for example, or humanitarian paroles or humanitarian reinstatements. All of those require the discretion of the officer who's reviewing it to say yes. And just think about it. If you had to convince somebody to say yes, would you just send them a form and say please, or maybe a little letter saying please give this to me because I've waited for 20 years? There's no way. Okay, there's a great deal of work that goes into preparing one of these packages. And while it's admirable that some people believe that they can go on the internet and that they can research and that they believe that they understand all of the aspects of what needs to be done and how to argue, the reality is they don't. Okay, the reality is you're not putting a legally coherent package in front of an officer to make the decision. Okay, just as if you went online and researched how to fix a broken arm by yourself. I mean, obviously you would not do that. There's no way. Even if it listed exactly what to do, you wouldn't understand the various terms. You wouldn't be able to do it like a doctor would because you don't have the training. Okay, I'm only bringing this up because what happens with a lot of other consults I get is I have to fix what they did that was wrong, and that makes it more difficult because now I'm not only having to do the petition itself and argue what needs to be done, but I'm having to explain why the petition that the client submitted either was incorrect, didn't make misrepresentations and fraud, didn't intend to say what they did, didn't check the various boxes correctly, all because of reasons which I have to analyze and get into. So it literally takes more work to try to fix a bad petition than to do it without that petition ever being submitted. So the way things are these days with immigration, you can never, ever, ever assume that just because you submit it, it's going to be approved. Okay? That is the wrong path to take. And that gets into, where some clients say, well, I'd like to have a guarantee of success before I walk out the door. And I say, well, you're going to have to walk out the door without my firm doing it, because there's no way that an immigration attorney can guarantee you success on a petition with the way things are today or how they have ever been. There are no guarantees. And that's all the more reason that you have to have an experienced, qualified immigration attorney do the petition, do the waiver, do the legal brief, do the arguing. Okay? The fact it's not guaranteed, and if anything was guaranteed, all that would mean would be, okay, we'll come in and check box 1, check box 6, checks box 8, and sign here, and boom, you get your green card. It obviously doesn't work like that. Everything needs to be convinced. Everything needs to be properly argued. so that, number one, you're not opening yourself up to possible removal or deportation or denial and then removal. You're not opening up yourself to misrepresentation and fraud, because immigration thinks everything you do or don't do is fraudulent. That's the reality when you walk in the door. And so, if it is prepared properly and it's argued properly, while you can't get a guarantee of success, you certainly will have a much, much higher chance of success if it is done properly in the first place. So, if you want to try doing things yourself, we're talking about home improvement, fixing the toilet, things like that. But if you're going to do an immigration petition, which your loved one is depending on for you to get in, or you are outside the United States and your loved ones are in the US and you're trying to get in, you don't want to take all that emotion that you have and try to believe that you have the capabilities of doing all this yourself and arguing it yourself, because number one, you're too emotionally involved. Number two, you didn't go to law school, get a law degree, and pass the bar. And number three, you haven't practiced for a bunch of years in immigration law. Okay, and don't get the wrong idea here. I'm not trying to convey anything at all about intelligence. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that if I wanted to try myself, I would never do. Okay, like we talked about home improvement. I don't touch electricity. Okay, because I know what can happen. I don't touch gas because I know what can happen. I let the professionals come in and I let them do it. Then I know it's done right. I know that it's going to be done in a professional manner, and I know there's a good chance of success. Okay, so given that, I'm imploring you that whatever immigration attorney you go to, that if you're doing an immigration petition that your well-being or the well-being of your family depends upon, that's not the time to cut back and to try to do it yourself. Okay? So if you want a free consultation, I'm happy to give it to you. Give my office a call. We'll set it up. And then for any other questions, go ahead and let me know, and we'll see what we can do to help you. Okay, more in the coming videos.